Hello, dreamers, and welcome to Aligned by M&M. Today we have your host, me, Emily Hopper, and my co-owner, business partner, best friend, soulmate, Emily
Mm.
Saylor.
Hi,
And
everyone.
today, and today we're here to talk about relationships. So this is the long anticipated for us relationship episode. So, really, today I'm going to be taking a bit of a back seat. Sometimes we do this when one of us has a little bit more expertise on a topic. And when it comes to relationships, that will definitely be Emily Saylor. So, Emily has taught me just about everything I know in how to build conscious, beautiful relationships with both partners and in friendship as well. She has so many nuggets of wisdom that just each little nugget has served me for years and years. And it's something I try to practice. And for me, it definitely takes a lot more practice. I think it comes very naturally to M. But she has been in a relationship with her partner for over 14 years now. So she has had plenty of practice, plenty of growth while in a relationship. And that's something I really believe. To grow in relationships, you have to be in one. I think a lot of times, us single women, single people, think we can kind of like in silo do all the work required to then show up as like this ideal person in a relationship. But the moment you step into it, you realize that's not the case, because it's truly that person being a mirror to you that really brings up the things that you need to work on. So Em has been in a very long relationship, working on all the things throughout. Her and her partner Josh have a beautiful baby boy and another sweet baby girl on the way. So they really have done it all. They own a farm together. They both work full time. And from my perspective, they have truly grown in a very interdependent relationship so wonderfully and so beautifully. And it has been truly my honor and pleasure to witness the growth in the 5 to 6 years of knowing Emily. So today we're going to kind of unpack and dive in to Emily's magic and how she sustains such beautiful relationships, the nuggets of wisdom she has, some key takeaways, and we'll just kind of talk about her experience. So hello,
Amazing.
Em.
Hi, Hi, everyone. Oh my gosh, the intros are just like lately have just been this, I don't know, biggest confidence boost. Yeah, that was wow. So beautiful as always. I also like thank you so much for believing in my relationship advice. It's so funny because it feels so wild to me, and it's likely because it comes natural to me. Like, I really do not feel like a teacher on this subject. So I'm very curious, even as I'm talking, to hear your responses and like what you have taken away from our conversations and our interactions and things like that. And yeah, I'm really excited for this conversation and what's going to unfold because truthfully, I'm not really sure what to expect. So you guys are in for a treat.
Yes, that's our favorite. We love living in the unknown.
Yes.
But I think truly that's when you know something is your gift and your magic, is when it feels so natural to you that you forget or don't even realize that it's something other people struggle so much with. And that's how I've always found my gifts and magic, is like people are in awe of this thing I'm doing. And I'm like, can't everyone do this? I thought this is something
Right.
everyone was good at. And that's kind of your cue to know, like, oh, this is a special strength I have. So, yes, I'm definitely here to reflect that back to you. And yeah, let's dive in.
Amazing.
All
Thank you.
right. Okay, so my first question, we're just going to get right to the juicy bits.
Mm.
And for me, the juicy part of life is all about love, right? And that's really kind of my core and purpose and what I'm most interested in and always calling in more of. And so, for any other listeners who really want to expand and grow their love, I think this conversation is for you. So let's just start. What are some characteristics or core components of love for you, Emily?
Oh, wow. So love to me is honest honestly, like, when I think of love, the definition of love, to me, it is, like, encompassing everything. It's, like, the duality and accepting and appreciating all sides and all facets because love is, like, really when you break something down to its very pure essence, like it's love, right? Or another way to say that is it's source, or it's like I one of my favorite teachers refers to like appreciation is also like it's very pure. But what is yeah, to me, what when we're truly operating from a space of love and when we're truly loving another person, it is an embracing of everything. Like, it's an embracing of who they are, what they believe in, how they're
Gives me
showing
chills.
up wholly and completely, like good or bad, black and white, you know? And so, in order to see that in another person, like when I think about the relationships and the people that I have that true love for, unconditional love for, which comes and goes. Like, obviously, we can't have unconditional love for everyone all the time. But primarily, yeah, when I think of those people, it's like the people that are also reflecting back to me, the good qualities in me. They like make me a better person too, if that makes sense. Like, I think about my love for Josh and my love for you, like it's people who also accept me. But I also recognize that wouldn't be possible if I didn't accept myself first. So
So much there, so much there.
that's
So
what came up.
first,
Anyways, wow, sorry.
yeah, no, that's beautiful. So I would say first, just listening. Love is truly a feeling. Like you just listening to
Yeah.
what you said, it gave me a full body feeling of what love is. And I think, love is a feeling. And then also, if we break it down, so as I was saying, love takes me a bit more practice, perhaps, and I read this book recently, and it's the 5 A's of mindful loving. We can
Beautiful.
link it in the show notes. It's an amazing book. And I would say it's a book for people who have been confused around the concept of love for a lot of their life and need a bit more like tangibleness to it. But it's so funny, like how we're saying that this comes more natural to you. You literally just said, I think, most of the 5 A's in your own explanation.
Too funny.
So the 5 A's that he suggests is acceptance, appreciation, attention, allowance, and affection.
That's
And I feel like that's exactly what you said. And I think a key component to the love that you give and receive in the world and the love that we both embody and what is at the core of our business is that it does start with you. So
mhm.
it's working on those things within yourself and really owning it so that you're attracting that outside of yourself. You're not just expecting these 5 A's to be given to you when you're not really embodying them or giving them in the first place.
Yes. That's amazing, and so funny because I was just listening to something on YouTube, and they said 3 A's,
Mm.
and it was allowing, acknowledging, and appreciating,
Yeah.
which is so
Yes.
funny. Yeah, super
Yes.
aligned. Yeah.
And like all of these words, I think like they have a core essence that is kind of to me like very similar, and it's the essence that you just kind of said so beautifully. And I know it's harder to like put into words what love is,
Mhm,
but as you were talking, like I just felt it, right? It's like a
mm,
full embracing of just
mhm.
everything that someone has to give, everything that someone is, everything
Yeah,
that you are yourself. And yeah, it's like a big warm beautiful
mhm.
hug.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it really is. Yep. What Benny says lately, what he's so into is like he loves to give hugs and kisses, and he just says how it makes him feel better. Like hugs and kisses make right? And it's like, like how much more purer does it get than that? Like that is love.
Of course, your child is like the purest child in the
Oh
whole
God,
world.
he's such a sweetie. He definitely brings out the love in me, that's for sure.
Yeah. Which is beautiful because I will say a lot of typical parents might say the opposite, right? Brings out the triggered aspects,
Well, I've had to work through that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure.
There are
Yeah, I'm sure, but I think the
but
fact that
yes.
you were able to say that now shows how much you
Yes.
probably have had to work through.
Yes.
Um, okay, so next question.
Mhm.
I feel like something that you have really taught me in loving others and creating conscious relationships, and it is something that truly, this is not something I own as my specialty whatsoever. It's something I struggle with. It's like a core area of work for me. And so I'm so happy to talk about it even more today. But kind of like I was saying, like you have to kind of embody these things first so that you're not expecting love from others when you're not embodying that love to begin with.
Mhm.
So, my question for you is, how do you leave expectations at the door? How do you just drop your expectations? And this is something you shared with me so long ago, like when we first met, and I was struggling with boyfriends. And I will own that I have had so many toxic relationships. And Emily really is such a great mirror for me, never judging, but truly just giving me these nuggets of wisdom. And I think one that has just stuck with me forever is, you can't show up with expectations because it just kind of always leads you to disappointment. And I feel that so much. Like I even had an experience this weekend where that was completely the scenario. And I was just like, dang it, Em, you did it again. And I just kind of had to laugh about it, cry about it,
Mhm.
and then, try to learn from that. But yeah, enlighten us. So, like, what is your practice? What's your mindset?
Yeah.
What are some things you do to like really just have no expectations when you show up with Josh and other relationships in your life?
So what's interesting is like where this concept comes from is a modality that I learned a long time ago called access consciousness. And the teacher of this modality talked about how I think it came from a book called like Divorceless Relationships. And the concept was like not cutting off pieces of yourself to like fit inside a box to work for a
Mm.
relationship. So
Ding, 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 ding.
and um but one of the things that he said is he talks a lot about judgment. So, like, how our judgments of other people really determine how they show up for us. And his big thing was like to completely eliminate all judgments in your life and to like show up moment to moment willing to be surprised and delighted, right? And so, like, that's very relevant to relationships because if we have a habitual relationship with someone, we just eventually we can come to a place where we want them to show up differently. We want the
Mm.
outcome to be different, but we like have these, yeah, expectations or judgments of them. And so, like, how are we giving them any room to show up differently when we already have these judgments? And then when they show up how they typically do, then we get all mad because, like, I wanted you to show up in a certain way, or I wanted this to show up in a certain way rather than like, let's just like completely like the term that Gary Douglas is the teacher, his name. He would like destroy and uncreate was his word. So we're destroying and uncreating everything that all of our preconceived judgments about the person, about the situation, and giving that person the space, the trust, the allowance to show up as their best self and surprise and delight you. And this also comes from a deep sense of trust that you don't have to control, right? Like you don't have to change the
Mm.
other person. You don't have to decide what's best for them, for how they should show up to make things work better for you. If you give them the space to do that, they can show up in better ways than you can even imagine in your own mind, right? And so that's the power of releasing any expectations and like allowing things to naturally unfold and let like the universe guide you, but then also like let the other person, show up and guide you and surprise you in unexpected ways. So does that help
I'm
clarify?
giggling. Yes, I'm giggling because I feel so called out. I'm like, everything you're saying, like, not to do is exactly what I do. And
That's
so, like,
funny.
I want to unpack this more
Yeah.
because, of course, what you're saying sounds so beautiful. And of course, it's like where I want to be. But for me, and I'm sure many other people, like, it is so hard to do that. And I'm sure when you add like a baby to the equation, it's even harder because now you have all these shared responsibilities.
Mhm,
You have all these things that like have to get done in a day. You have all these things that would make your life better in a
mhm,
day. And I'm sure it is so easy to sit there and just be like, okay, well, when Josh gets home, like he needs to do this and he better do this. And if
mhm,
he doesn't, then like he doesn't love me or
mhm,
like, just
mhm.
kind of stories like that.
Yep.
And I guess from my end, it's like, even just with boyfriends, it's like we show up together and I immediately like in my head and I notice it, I have like an agenda of like what I want this person to do. Like, what the heck? Literally, what is that? And so, like, where does that come from? And you mentioned
Mhm,
control. And I think that is definitely an area of work in my life that I've always kind of had to stick with and work on. And it's releasing that control and instead sinking into trust that
mhm,
what this person is going to do is going to be in my best interest.
mhm.
And it's not meant to hurt me. And it's not meant to, like, push me to the side or show that they don't love me. But if you're where I struggle, how do you kind of bridge that gap and like how do you get to where you're saying and where you're at?
So, I mean, I went backwards after becoming a mom for sure, like, in a sense, where
Or I would say deeper, right? Like
deeper.
you were
Yeah,
presented with the same stuff
yeah,
again and you had to
yeah,
heal it deeper. Yeah.
totally. And so I think naturally, because of how we are raised as humans, that like you have to show up in a certain way or you get scolded, blah, 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 like
Uh-huh.
disciplined, like that when certain things need to get done around the house, like you mentioned with your child, that sort of thing, that you like want to scold the other person or tell the other
Mhm.
person what they're doing wrong when things don't get done in order to satisfy your
Your own
needs and yeah,
needs.
totally.
Yeah.
And so we come by it very honestly. So like give yourself, let yourself off the hook first of all that, we act in this way because the biggest thing that I found when I became a mom was that I was in a constant loop of blame of Josh, that it was like, I'm not happy because these things are not getting done and you're not helping with them. And it's your fault that I'm not
Mm,
happy. And so like really saying like you need to behave in this certain way in order for me to be happy, which is absolutely
mm.
ludicrous, but that is how we are raised as kids. You need to behave in this certain way in order for me to be happy as a mom, right? And so like this is ingrained in us.
Whoa, that
For
just unraveled so much stuff. And I'm sure so many moms can relate to that dynamic of thinking.
Yes. So when this was showing up for me and I was in this habitual place of like genuinely like hating the role of mom, wishing I was in the role of dad, right? Like because I'm the one that has to always be there for the child, like dad gets to come and go and like I hate that. Like I want the freedom, like blah blah blah, right? Like
Yeah.
really getting into that like low place of operating
Mhm.
and getting to the place where like yeah, it was like a constant loop of blame of Josh for my own unhappiness.
And it
And
Well, I was gonna say, I feel like that probably loop almost feels good at first because
yes.
now you have like a way. I was
Yes.
actually listening to a podcast today about how blame actually has a sense of pleasure in it. There is a sense of pleasure that we take away from
Yes.
making it all the other person's fault.
Yes.
And so
Absolutely.
I'm sure at first that was like, "Ah, this is why. Like, this is
Yep.
why I feel like this. Of course it's him." And
Yep.
like this loop is like a little bit pleasurable. It's like a little
Yep.
bit like self-serving and like kind of a deviant way?
Mhm.
And then I'm sure the more you follow that, the more destructive
Mhm,
and horrible you start to feel on
mhm.
the inside. And it's funny, of course, parallel, but I feel like I've been going through a bit of anger and blame this week. And at first, it was like, oh, yeah, that's why. I felt
Yes.
so good about it. And
Yeah,
then, like, 3 to 4 days passed, and I was like, I feel like I'm
yeah,
deteriorating
yeah.
inside. Like, this is not good. What's happening? And so, yeah, tell me about how you kind of switched that.
Yeah. So how I understand it and how I've always looked at it is the emotional scale, right? So like depression, blame is a huge step up from depression, right? So
Mm.
like as I'm mourning the person that I like after I became a mom, right? Like you kind of go through death and rebirth.
Yeah.
There was a lot of depression, then there was, some anger and then blame, but the trouble with blame is that you get stuck there because
Mhm.
you're waiting for the other person to change before you feel better, and, like, I see this in so many relationships where they are waiting for the other person to change before they feel better, and it's like, you are not responsible for changing that other person, you're responsible for changing yourself, and so, like, I
Mm.
had to whoo, like really dig in. And again, like so grateful for all the tools, knowledge, awareness that I had, right? So that I could get out of this pattern because it no longer felt good. It felt awful. And I knew that it could be better. And I knew like I really had to look at myself. I knew that I
Yeah.
was creating it, right? And that I could create something different. And so it really, like, what changed it for me was acknowledging that I was in blame, right?
Yeah.
Acknowledging that I was trying to change and control Josh's behaviors in order for me to feel better, and acknowledging that I had all the power to change it. I truly did,
Yes. Oh, what a
like
great realization. Yes.
yes, and I just decided that blame was no longer a part of my identity, and that
Mm.
my identity was appreciation and surprise and delight and no expectation, right? Like all these things that I know are like true and that like are in my heart. And I'm like, that's who I really am, like that's who I want to come back to. And so when the blame would bubble up, I kind of like self rehearsed, okay, when blame comes up, like, that's not no longer a part of me. Like, I'm going to tap into my appreciation instead. And for me, it's always appreciation. Like, that really is I associate love and appreciation very closely. And so,
Mhm.
like, looking at all of the ways in which I, appreciate Josh, which is like, oh my gosh, really, that's a really hard jump, honestly, at first. But every time that you catch yourself and you like give yourself that little pat on the back, like, oh, okay, I caught myself
Like you
before I
found
went into
something.
blame, I did it. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And then it's just kind of like baby steps and it gets better and better, right? Like you keep catching yourself more and more. And yeah, and then the magic happens when you do tap into that appreciation and then holy shit, then they start showing up differently. Then they
Mm.
start like, "Oh my gosh, like, Josh was around so much this week and he helped with this and this and this, and oh my god, look at him right now, and oh my god, look at what he's doing," and you know what I mean? And, like, he's showing up in all these different ways, and he was probably doing it before, I just couldn't even perceive it because of where I was at, right?
Yeah.
But now so, like, the reward of getting to the other side of that blame is that then your reality is genuinely different, and
Yeah.
every time you go through that cycle with a person, with a situation where you can, get over the hump and
Yeah.
then feel the results on the other side, like, then it gets easier because you know it works and you're
Right.
happy to implement it, and I remember hearing one time, it was like, why do I always have to be the one to change? Why do I always have to be the one to like take the lead and like do the inner work and all that stuff? And I remember like kind of resonating with that. I'm like, oh, I've totally had that thought before. Like, I'm like, oh, why do
Mhm.
I always have to be? And it's like,
Yeah.
I'm like, how can I take away all of the work that Josh does every single day to be a good dad, a good husband?
Yeah.
Like, for me to assume that I'm the one doing all the work, like, is craziness. Like, how can I take away that, you
Yes.
know, like, how disempowering that is for me to be like, yeah, or even, like, how disempowering is it for me to be like, "I wanna be the dad." Like, he's the one who doesn't get to see every moment with Josh and or with Bennett and, all
Right.
those sorts of things, and so, yeah, it's just, it's a it's definitely a different way to approach relationships where it's, like,
Yeah.
100% ownership, but also, like, 100% empowerment of the other person. You're leaving so much
Yeah.
space, so much trust for them to, yeah, show up as their best self.
Yeah. So something I read in a book, a relationship book, as I have to read because it does not come as natural, was really enlightening. And I think it's kind of what you're saying right now is that in relationships, I think sometimes we assume, well, when we're in blame, it's like, this is 0% my fault, 100% the other person's fault.
Mm.
But then when we kind of balance out, we might assume, like, okay, it's 50-50, right? Like 50% me, 50% them. But actually, kind of like taking that to the next step is assuming 100% and allowing them to have 100%. So it's like a total 200%.
Oh, I love
And and I
that
think
feels really good, yeah.
freeing, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, actually, I can take full responsibility and accountability for everything that I'm feeling and the way that I'm showing up and the way that I'm projecting and the expectations I might be holding way too high above this person's head. And then they also have a full 100% to own and claim and play with and navigate. And so I don't know. I feel like that kind of just speaks to what you're saying of like, it's really fully our own job, you know? There isn't this like, okay, well, if I own 50%, they have to own the other 50%. Otherwise, I'm doing all the work, right? And
Yes.
like you were saying, like Josh does his work, but in his own way, right? And I think sometimes in a like heteronormative relationship, so male and
Yeah.
female, like sometimes the men, and of course, absolutely changing and changed now, but a lot of times the man is the more like physical provider,
Yeah.
right? Like they are kind of like doing that more physical out in the world work. And the women are doing a bit more of like the emotional, kind of more consciousness work. And I've gotten to that place too where it's like, okay, I'm doing it all. Like,
Yeah.
now they're showing up now. That was me. And I've fallen into that. And it's kind of the extreme other end of blame where it's like, now I'm taking all the credit.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
well, yeah, like, how amazing. So yeah, and I think that actually brings me to my next question, which is how do you maintain an interdependence? Because the kind of two sides of that spectrum would be like codependent relationship, which, knowing both of us, we have grown out of, and perhaps you grew out of that with Josh, like while in relationship with Josh. And then the extreme other end is like severe independence, where you don't need anyone, you want to be alone essentially. So how do you kind of form that interdependent relationship? And there's also a visual you've shared about the trees that I think kind of
Mhm.
gives a visual to kind of what I'm asking as well.
Okay, amazing. So, yeah, maybe I'll start with the tree visual because that's really when it clicked for myself. I was like, I would say, like, how many years into our relationship? We were living together. I was out of college. Like, we both had full time jobs. And it was maybe like, I don't know, 6 years into our relationship. And it was getting to the point of like, is Josh the person I'm going to spend forever with? Right. And so that was bringing up, because it was an edge, it was bringing up all the stuff. So I was going through a lot of like doubt and like, is Josh the person for me? All this stuff. And one of my big struggles was that we don't share the exact same belief systems. And it's not even that we don't share the same belief systems, like we don't share the same practices, I guess. Like it's amazing when we talk, like we're both super open-minded. We both fully trust and accept each other. So we're like totally open to each other's perspectives and points of view, and we are always learning from each other, which is amazing. But yeah, like how we conduct ourselves in life and like work through things is so, 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 so different. Like Josh does not meditate every day, you know? And I was struggling with that. Like I was like, how can I spend forever with someone who like doesn't believe in this, the same stuff that I do, that sort of thing. And was going through, yeah, a season of doubt. And I had a call with a psychic, and we were talking about, oh gosh, like all sorts of different things. And at the very end of the call, she's like, "Do you have any more questions for me?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I would like to ask about my relationship with Josh." And she was like, "Oh," she's like, "I'm surprised you're asking." She's like, "Because I right away tuned in." And she's like, "And I got a visual of a tree, and it was two, essentially like two trees, roots growing together. And it really felt like you guys were your own people, but that you're stronger together." And that just
Um,
like completely changed everything for me because now I saw the beauty of our differences. I saw how we complement each other, how like me being more of the, like, floaty kite and him being more. I remember there was a movie we watched where that's how the couple described their relationship. One person was the kite and the other person was, like, the rock that the kite was, like, tied like
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then I, like, appreciated our differences and saw how we were stronger together, and I've always then carried that forward now, like supporting his, initiatives and projects and dreams and all of that, knowing he fully and completely accepts and supports all of mine and that they're wildly different. And we get to create this beautiful, supportive life together. So like, um, and even just recently, like I am so excited for like, I see how we parent together, and I'm like, "I can't wait for the day when we are inspired to, like, have a passion project together," where we
Yeah, yeah.
really get to, like, create, because that's how I love to create. But, yeah, it really is about, like, honoring and allowing the other person to explore and be their own person and, like, not asking for permission, but assuming support of all of
Mm.
your hopes and dreams and projects too.
Nugget of wisdom right there. That's a new one for me.
That's a new one for me too, actually.
Note of that. So what was it? Not asking for
Permission,
permission, but
but assuming
assuming
support.
support. That's so beautiful because on his end, who I know is a very supportive person in your life, I don't think it would almost like be fair to him if you were asking him permission. Of course, not fair to you, but like I think he would almost be a little offended,
The
with
number of
like, of
times
course, like,
the
why are
number
you
of
asking?
times he's like basically like, "Do what makes you happy, like, that's all I
Yeah,
want," you know?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Like, "Why
totally.
are you asking me?"
Yeah, like, is something wrong?
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
that. Amazing, and well, I think we're at time. So maybe just like a quick little minute or two
Yeah.
on like some takeaways that some people can implement or practices or visualizations or things that are helpful that people can do like today to start having better, more loving, conscious relationships.
So, oh my gosh, something that I do often that I don't even think like, it's not even intentional, but Josh, being in his presence, like, touch is we both share that love language. So, like, I'm always visualizing us cuddling or, like, us, like, close and, like, dancing or whatever it might be, just, like, really getting in that love feeling with Josh, like, in a visualization, whether that's through, like, a morning gratitude practice or morning visualization or meditation practice, right? Taking that time to cultivate that feeling has it naturally changes the way in which you show up for one another. It's like the law of attraction, right? Like, you're creating that feeling, and so you're attracting opportunities, moments, situations where you experience that feeling with one another. That has been transformational for me with Josh. And like when I talk about a person surprising you, like, so just recently, yeah, a visualization that's so strong for me that makes me feel so good that I practice often is like Josh and I were in the kitchen. My head is like on his chest because I'm a lot shorter than him, and we're embracing each other. And we just, like, look at each other and we're like, "We're doing it." Like, we are living our dreams and, like,
Mhm.
we are so happy, and I'm so grateful for this moment, right? Like, that's really, like, what I'm feeling. And
Okay.
yeah, like, since practicing that, the number of nights we've had, like, pillow talk and have had the most extraordinary conversations and, like, heart connecting moments, and I'm like, "Oh, this is so connected to this
Yeah.
visualization." Yeah, so profoundly powerful. So yeah, cultivating that feeling with that partner, practicing that feeling and letting it show up for you in and like even if you're not in a relationship, an intimate relationship like myself, it will show up in all of your relationships, and in all of the most beautiful, unexpected, surprising, and delightful ways.
Yes, amazing. Yeah, and I think, as a single person myself, like all of the stuff that Emily says can be practiced in our own way, right? Like a visual of that dream partner, or like I have kind of given up on the idea, and that's, something we can get into relationship episode number 2. But giving up on the idea that, like, all your needs need to be met by this one person,
Mhm,
right? And so even a visual for me, friends are, like, the most important thing in my life, and that is where I receive the most love, and I will say that's something that comes way natural to me. And a visual, like, around the love I want to receive with friends, right? Like, love is love, and it doesn't always have to come from that intimate partner. So, yeah, like, even if you don't have the partner right now, it's like, how can you visualize or get into that essence of love no matter where you're at in life? And I have done this, and I need to get back to it, but it truly, like, it brings to you those moments
mhm,
that just completely blow you away, and it might look a little similar to your visual, but mostly what connects it back is the feeling.
mhm.
You feel the way you feel in both scenarios, and it's like, "Wow, I did it."
Totally.
Not, not just you, but
Yeah. Oh,
co-creating with the universe,
yes,
in that moment,
absolutely.
and the universe is aligning everything for you to have
Yeah,
those moments with the person
yeah.
that you desire.
You absolutely did it. You absolutely
Oh, yeah.
initiated that.
You guys are not wanting to backtrack on, like, claiming 100
Yeah.
or, like, claiming all of
Well,
it.
they had to be receptive too, right?
Yeah, exactly, and they have to be, tapped in their own
Mhm.
way, whether it's the
Exactly.
way it looks like for you, but they have to be kind of able to access that frequency of love as well, which, you have to trust that they're able to do that, and that's why they're here, and that's why you're together and loving each other fully.
Amazing. Thanks
All
so much.
right. Well, I have lots more to say,
Fun.
so I think we should do a second
I think
episode.
you're good too. Yeah.
Or lots more to ask you, I guess, more so.
Mhm.
So yeah, dreamers, if you comment on our podcast
Yeah.
and would like to hear more of what Emily
Some
Saylor has to
questions
say
for
on
us.
this topic,
Yeah.
let us know, and we will see you or you'll hear us in the next episode.
Thanks for listening, guys.
Thank you so much, dreamers, for tapping in, turning on, and leveling up with us today. May you always remember your true worth, find alignment in every day, and live your dreamiest life. That is our biggest dream for you. You can find us on our website at dreamagency.biz, socials at dreamagencybiz, or email us at emily@dreamagency.biz. Make sure to subscribe, follow, share with those you love, and reach out. We can't wait to connect with you.